Welcome to Bible over Brews. Deep thoughts ferment over time and text. I'm coming at you, Aaron Crew Juice for Verka, and I've got Gumby.
Hey, what's going on?
I've got Keith.
Great to be back. It's been so long. I feel like we've left you hanging like Shitter Sanders on draft night.
That's exactly what we were thinking.
We're going to be chilling and relaxing to this awesome brew that Keith brought. Keith, what was it called again?
This is Rally Drum Lemon Shandy from Great Lakes.
Oh.
This is brought to you by my co-working space being right next to the Great Lakes Brewery gift shop.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, we love Squeeze Place. We loaded our lager base with a hint of sweetness and lemon for refreshing shandy that scores big when it comes to flavor. I believe it was a 4.0, wasn't it?
Oh, ABV or like rating?
ABV.
Okay. I would give it a 5, but I haven't tasted it yet.
I didn't even start drinking yet. Wow.
I was still distracted. That voice you're going to. I thought you were going to make love to the beer.
It's dangerous being that close to work there next to a
Oh, yes.
Great Lakes.
I can imagine. Okay, so actually not a lot of head. That's interesting. But then again, if it is a shandy base, it would make sense. It's it's got a nice clearness to it. Nice clearness to it. Kind of looks like I'm looking through a crystal clear lemonade.
Ooh. I like it.
Oh my Lord.
I already looked at the top of the can. It's great.
That smells like a lemon meringue pie. Ooh.
It reminds me of something I can't put it out. Like it's definitely different than like Leinenkugel's Summer Shandy.
Yeah, it's, you know what? It has, it's reminiscent, but it is distinctly different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't remember what that is. It's bugging me. Like I'm having deja vu.
And it's not sweet, but there's a feeling of sweetness to it without being sweet.
Like maybe it's more like it's like the fair like lemonade you get with like the fresh squeezed lemon.
Yeah.
And, like maybe after you've let the ice melt a little bit, so
I
it
could
doesn't
see that.
overpower you with the sugar.
Yeah. I see what you mean.
And taking that second sip, there's just a little bit of like a lemon pungency to it, but in a nice way.
Yeah, like I'm tasting lemon and it's not like cartoon lemon. You get with like the artificial flavoring and all.
Yeah, it's not a
like,
syrup.
It's like legit lemon. Like someone's opened this beer and squeezed lemon inside of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's good. It's not puckering. I'm enjoying this. This is good.
Any summer shandy-ish beer, it just makes me obviously think of summer. But I mean, it's like the perfect beer at the ball game. Like I always go for that at the ball game because I'm like, this is July.
It makes
beer
sense.
Is July. This kind of beer is July.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm ready for July.
Aren't we all?
In August.
Yeah, that's true.
But not
I'm
September.
ready for May to actually show up. I mean, I'm not sure it's here yet.
So, Keith, how you been?
Oh man, I've been having a time. I have a big announcement.
Oh, what's this?
I'm moving.
Really?
What?
Super far away. It's about 3 houses down from Gumby.
Oh my Lord!
No way.
Yeah.
Will we
Serious?
Yeah.
ever see you again?
How about that house?
Oh my gosh, it's such a cool house.
I know. It's like I wasn't planning on buying a house, but like we always like had in our head like, we might, if we're feeling punchy that day and one of like 5 houses in the neighborhood go on for sale, we might just do it. And so that one went up. We toured it. Like we got the tour booked like the morning after the night it went up.
Nice.
And then we put an offer on it by the afternoon, and one thing led to another. And yeah, we're moving at the end of the month.
Congrats.
Oh, that's
David.
awesome.
Wow.
I mean, it's going to be so much longer before we see that next time now. It's got to be at least an extra 50
However, there
feet.
seems to be a lot more grass to cut there.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
There is. I want to try it once with the reel mower because I love my reel mower.
Mm-hmm.
And like if I feel like it's tolerable, I'll get like a wider reel mower. But like, I guess I might have to graduate to electric. My dad offered me like an old like gas. He had one, and I'm like, the garage is so nice in the house. I just don't. I know there's a gas mower in there right now because like I went in and toured. There's still a gas mower, but I'm like, I just don't want to put another gas mower in it. Like I want the minimum number of things that can leak gasoline in the garage as possible. So I'm like, I'll probably buy an electric, but I don't know. There's something cathartic about a reel mower. I've been using a reel mower for about, I don't know, last 8 years or something.
Mm.
And like the fact that it does, I mean, electric motors are quiet too.
Wait. So an electric motor is not a real mower?
Like a real mower, you know, like a little like kind of twisty thing. It's like so. I mean, it's a workout. Like you probably have to mow a little more often.
For sure.
It's not a bad workout. Like you put a podcast on. Like I don't know how people did it back in the old days before they had podcasts.
Yeah.
But now that you have podcasts, like I'm like, dang, you know, I could mow my lawn 3 times a week and I'd be perfectly happy with it.
That's why you have kids, Keith. I mean,
right?
Well,
like, Joey, it's your turn to mow the lawn, buddy.
None of them have successfully like pushed the reel mower yet for more than like a couple feet.
Yeah. I've been training Joey, and I see him struggling out there pushing it, like his knees buckling. I'm like, come on, buddy, you can do it. Yep.
Yeah, my parents ruined me on mowing lawns. I hate mowing lawns.
Really?
Oh, we used to have to mow 3 acres by hand.
Dang.
Well, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, that was an all day thing. We would have 3 mowers going at all times. My parents would switch off on one. My sisters would switch off on the other, and I was on one the whole day.
Wow.
Yeah.
No judgment here.
So I've never wanted to mow a lawn after that.
I mean, I went through my phase where like, oh, my grass has got to be one of the nicest. And then once I saw that water bill, like, yep, I'm done.
Yeah, I eventually graduated to like, let's just put a bunch of clover in the middle of it.
I don't care what the front looks like, especially when the kids are young. I'm like, there's just no way.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all over it. It's a football field. It's it's everything.
It's true. So. As I told my wife, in Europe, they love dandelions. They're like, that's part of the lawn.
Yeah.
It's really an American thing. Get rid of them.
Yelled at when I pull them out. Like my daughter will be like, I like that flower.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is it's really the golf courses that have ruined us, because previous to that, lawns were chock full of dandelion, and they were fully accepted because people would pull them, make tea of them, use them as vegetables. And then the whole, culture of golf made everybody want to reinvest in their lawns and get rid of it.
Wow!
But previous to that, you were considered having a rich lawn if it was full of dandelions.
Oh, isn't that like when how people were pretty rich people were pretty chubby back in the 1600s?
That's right. Yeah.
Bringing back dandelions and chubby.
The king's disease.
Rotund.
Gumby, how about you?
Oh, not much. Working, still doing music, and managing kids.
I hear that. Any cool dates coming up for music?
No. I mean, I got some projects that I'm doing for people. No live gigs right now.
Okay.
I mean, that could always change. I mean, I'm always getting calls to do that.
Yeah.
But I just can't do that right now.
Okay.
So I accept projects. I'm also doing some remodeling in the house that's been driving the wife nuts. So I've been doing a lot of that lately.
Nice. We have lots of that. My son and I have lots of that coming up. Yeah.
We'll remodel in the basement, shower, tile.
Oof.
Oh, nice.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So you've always had a bathroom basement or a basement bathroom?
Yes.
And now you're sprucing it up, making it.
But I completely gutted it. I mean, it was one of those bathrooms that maybe got used a handful of times and the kids have blotted it out of their memory.
Okay.
It's, pretty awful down there. I would have let my worst enemy use that shower down there. So I gutted everything out and did a major cleaning. So
nice.
Did it originally start as the detached just random shower in Pittsburgh Potty?
It seems to be that way, but there was already a shower line there and drain
Yeah.
that was separate from the other drain. So, and plumbing down there and all that. So I'm like, I could just throw another thing up, put a kind of like a curtain, and or we can really like rip it all out, take it a bump up.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So this reminds me. So I don't know why I was doing this, but like at 1 a.m. one night, I was like reading the history of the Pittsburgh potty. Like just like if you go into an unfinished basement in like a certain vintage of house, you will find just a random toilet in the middle of the basement, right?
Yeah, you
And like there's a bunch of misconceptions about why it exists. And I was like reading like here's like the real reason why it probably exists. And I was thinking at the time I was also like interviewing people like, to like get a job or like for people to like get a job at our company or whatever. So I was thinking like, oh man, like a critical thinking exercise would be like, okay, I'm going to explain a Pittsburgh potty to you. And you're going to tell me why you think people would put this into a house. So why do you guys think someone like back in the 1920s, 1930s, someone would install a random toilet just straight in the middle of the basement, no wall around it whatsoever?
It's funny you say that. My neighbor had one just like that, but I won't call them out. I don't know.
Well, there's several in our neighborhood. Like I saw several in houses that when we were originally looking around here.
Ours at least had some kind of like fixtures around it, but it was still shoddy. But to answer your question, I don't know. Did it have to do anything with like the steel mills and all that? Just people being that dirty, and the wife didn't want them coming up, and you go straight down. And
so
homemade prisons.
The steel mill angle, because obviously it's called the Pittsburgh potty, so you think steel mills when you think of Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So that's where people immediately go. But like not all of them. Some of them had showers nearby, but most of them didn't. And you think about like, oh, if it's about like cleaning up like a dirty steel worker coming home from work, like why would it just be a toilet? They're not going to wash themselves in the toilet, right? So the more plausible theory that actually comes up less frequently when you read about the Pittsburgh potty is that public sewer pipes were, the systems were not very robust when these homes were built. And so there would be frequent like overflows. So like, especially like going downhill, you think of like Pittsburgh and like hills and stuff like that. Whoever's downhill of some kind of plumbing issue is the one who's going to get the brunt of whatever happened. Or maybe it's uphill. Like basically like whoever's at the bottom of the hill gets most of whatever's flowing down, right? Especially if it gets stuck.
You gotta deal with all our
whatever is going to overflow into your house is going to be whatever is the lowest elevation wide opening. So this was the idea, was have a toilet opening in your basement. So if the neighborhood sewage overflows, it comes out in your basement instead of in the rest of your house. And like at that point, you have to kind of install a toilet because you need the whole like the vapor trap or whatever they call that to keep the actual like sewage fumes from coming up into your house. So at that point, you have to put a toilet in. So now you have a Pittsburgh potty.
Oh boy.
I can't believe I went there in this. Yeah, that was not on my bingo card for this.
We're never going to get that 2 minutes back.
There we go. Random trivia of this podcast.
That's it. Show's over. Good night. The Pittsburgh potty. We just renamed the episode.
Right.
How about you, Eric?
Oh my Lord, we've been busy. We have an app coming out on the Play Store so people can license my specialized Muay Thai system. The only Muay Thai conditioning system in the world, which is monthly, it is systematic, and it is thematic. So it's really cool. Yeah, so we've got that coming out. Just took a team down to Cincinnati, Ohio. They did really well. I brought 8 people down, and all of them completed all their rounds, which is just fantastic. And man, even some of the people who have had previous losses went on to win their divisions. Just amazing to see those people do those giant turnarounds. And I won my division, so
congratulations!
Pretty cool. Thank you. Yeah,
still fighting, man.
50 years old. I still have a few fights left in me, I guess.
You gotta keep fighting.
That's right.
No matter what you do.
Yeah, and you gotta strap me down before I'm gonna quit. Yeah, no, it was just pretty cool. It was a good showing. I actually stepped up. I signed up for 3. I did 2. I don't know what happened to the last one because I was ready and they just weren't there. So,
Wow.
yeah,
Did you have
but
the ice afterwards?
I felt fine.
Ice bath.
I
or
honestly,
anything?
a little knee was sore. Outside of that, everything else just felt fine. I wasn't nicked up.
Have you guys ever done an ice bath? I've done it a couple times.
I did the thing where you like jump into the lake in the middle in like January, but that's as close as I think I've gotten.
Yeah,
I guess that's
Polar bear or
probably-
whatever, polar bear dive or whatever.
I did a cold one.
I've done cold baths.
yeah.
Yeah.
Outside of that,
Amazing for if you have like soreness. Like there's a period where I was helping someone do concrete work, or like a couple times if I decided just to be crazy and go running for like 3 to 4 miles and I haven't been conditioned,
okay.
and my ankles and knees will feel it, I'll do like a cold bath. I can't do a nice one. Man, the soreness is just gone.
You know what? In my circles, the combat sports speaks volumes.
Mhm.
Everybody loves them. Everybody does. Yeah. So it's good stuff. Fun fact, they now sell ice plunges over at Sam's Club.
I saw them at Ollie's.
There you go. There you go.
Yes, totally.
Now, you mean like the tub? Like there isn't like some like system that makes the ice, does it, or is it like an all like?
This was like an
this is-
inflatable type of tub.
I didn't look into it, but I did see them on sale there.
I'm like, because some of those like pretty like fancy, like you'd find in this like secluded cabin, and I'm like, that's not really the.
That's not the one at
Ollie's
Ollie's.
crowd.
Yeah, the one at Ollie's, I'm pretty sure I could blow up here. Like, pretty quick.
Nice. Well, we're diving into the death sentence of Jesus Christ.
Ooh, I better light up before you do that.
Let's do it. There's a story to that we'll get into, and we're not going to do the full explanation because that would take a good Lord, 2 to 4 hours to really explain. But we'll highlight the reason why Jesus
TLDR.
was convicted. Yeah, that's what we'll be going over. Ooh, Gumby, what do we have here?
These are probably my favorite cigar ever. They are the Fuente Anejos. They only come out once a year. And I just happen to have a few.
Oh my Lord, that smells amazing.
Smell that cherry right on top, can't you?
Oh, that is fantastic. Hell yeah.
Let me smell before you.
Yeah, you got to get a whiff.
Oh,
Jeez, come on, man. What?
out of me yet.
Oh, that smells so good.
I continue saying that the secondhand smoke in this room is excellent.
I am planning on stopping over at the cigar place that carries, because not all of them carry it. Carries one of the Drew Estate brands, and it's the that chocolate mint. Oh, remember that one last year?
Javas?
Oh, it was so good.
Drew Estates?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one place I know that gets them. It's over in. Wait, maybe I shouldn't say where it is. It's over in Brunswick.
Speaking of like the misconception about the reason for the Pittsburgh potty, so
We circle back around.
Pre-podcast tradition where I grab a pair of pajamas and stick it like right next to the door when I come in, so I can immediately shed my clothes after being like soaked in cigar smoke.
Nice.
I'm sure your wife still notices that, doesn't she?
She has not said a thing yet.
Really?
There was even one time where I accidentally left my coat out in this like main area, like not behind the curtain, which I usually do. And like, she didn't say nothing.
Wow.
Hmm.
See? You're ready, man.
There you go.
Maybe I should go for it. Maybe next time.
I'm telling you.
Oh, that smells great. I don't even need the smoker. That's just, I mean, it's just in the air.
This is such a
Good.
great cigar. Yeah. I can't afford to smoke these all the time. Quite honestly, I can't afford to smoke them. But because it's like a $25 stick. So you can imagine what a box of 10
Oh
is.
gosh.
Why, thank you, sir. Wow. Oh, man. The depth in that.
Yeah,
Like, there's nuance.
there sure is.
Oh.
Oh guys, I'm getting high on your supply.
There's like a woody.
Mhm.
There's a nice woody note to it.
Cedar, a little bit of leather.
Mm.
There's some spice in it too.
I'm catching almost like a white pepper.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, that is really nice. That is gorgeous. We have to plan one of our future episodes coming up over at one of the cigar lounges.
That would be cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Havana said we can, so.
Maybe that would be your night.
You gotta smoke if you're coming in here. I'm like, okay. Anything for the show.
They all carry their own, like typically they have a walk-in humidor, right?
Yes.
So, and you have to buy from there. You can bring your own to smoke, but you got to buy one there.
You have to. Yeah. I mean, it's bad manners if you don't.
It's frowned upon.
Yeah.
I have those cigars.
Bad decorum.
Ads playing in my head. Cigars, the perfect place to rest your ash.
All right.
Yeah, I was listening to Matt Fradd the other day because he's big on cigars. And
For shop in Steubenville, right?
Oh yeah, and for those who don't know, Matt Fradd is a very popular Catholic podcaster, and he has a sizable following. In fact, he moved to Steubenville for his show. And he helped to start Chesterton Cigars. So he's one of the co-founders.
Nice.
Yeah. And like they were saying, a cigar is one of those things that it's kind of authentic because it's something that forces you to sit back and relax. Once you light one, you're like, well, we're here for about an hour. We're not going anywhere.
Yeah. We're in for the long run, man.
I gotta say though, in retrospect, like moving from Australia to the United States, serious own goal.
Nice.
I don't know. Right around the block, that's pretty big too, Keith.
I mean, I was like, well, I'm trapped here. I have too many kids to, be an expat, so I might as well get myself some extra square footage.
Yeah, make the most out of it.
Awesome.
So, Jesus said something, and we'll get there. Believe it or not, his death sentence starts like around 2,000 years before he was born. Goes back a long, long ways. Back to the early Ugarites and the Akkadians, the early Canaanites. So when you go back then, and I'll just read this real quick. In Ugaritic mythology, around 13th century BC, El and Baal ruled as co-regents. El as the invisible, wise sovereign, and Baal as the warrior cloud rider, who enforced El's will. The Baal cycle depicts Baal's victory over chaos, which is Yom, and is subordinate to Yel, establishing a hierarchy, divine council. This co-regency model was central to Canaanite religion, but was polemically repurposed by Israel to reveal Yahweh's supremacy. And we should probably back that up so that way people can understand what that means.
Probably, yeah. That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
So then, I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself here, but was Christ quoting all the way back here?
The answer to that would be yes and no. So here's the thing. Let's refigure this first because people may not understand what the Baal cycle is. And the Baal cycle is, think of it as the theology of like Mesopotamia. So like Ugarites, Akkadians, the people who surrounded what the early Israelites, well, what would become the Israelites, what their ideas of theology was. So Baal and El, I'll get this straight. Baal and El were the gods over the gods. So think of them as co-regents. So you had El and Baal, one that was the manifest and one that was the quote unquote invisible sovereign, but they worked together as co-regents over two different domains. Sound familiar?
Mm.
So the idea of this goes way back to even before there was, a rabbinical priesthood, or even before there was a Levitical priesthood. This goes back to some of the earliest times, like Sumerian era, when you had the Sumerians that populated the land, and a whole bunch of stuff we cover there much later, because that would take a lot more time too. we don't have enough time tonight, but it's very interesting that you have these mythos and these ideas in this ancient context. Now, polemic, that we have to explain too, because a lot of people don't understand what a polemic would be. A polemic is when you repurpose an idea to explain your own. A modern day polemic would be like if we are trying to explain God and we use Superman, right? And we could explain what God does through the motif of like Superman. That would almost be like a polemic, right? So now in today's fashion, it would be more allegorical, but in their time, they would literally retell a tale through their own God. Yeah. Prime example of this would be Noah.
Yeah.
Right? So Noah, as everybody knows, was a man that had to take all of these animals onto the ark because there was going to be a great flood.
Oh, George would be eating this up.
Yes, he would.
Miss you, George.
But the thing is that was a very common tale of the Mesopotamian people. And the Sumerians had their own version of that story. So the thing is that they would take these different stories and tell it through the guise of their own God. So that's what a polemic would be explaining that story through your God rather than the neighboring God. Yeah. So it's very interesting. It's kind of like how they taught like theology back then.
Right. You got any thoughts on that, Keith?
No, I'm just on like a Wikipedia chain on all these different terms.
Well, it makes me feel like then almost like I'm going to put myself in George's shoes for a second here, like, because when you read that, it almost then makes it feel like the concept of God in the origin of the Old Testament is already borrowed.
Yeah.
Came
My head
from
was going
somewhere
there a little
else.
bit.
It does.
Right?
It does. And so that's why a lot of people say things like that. But every culture back then did that.
Correct.
Yeah. So and people will say, well, see, they stole that theology. No, that's how they told theology.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the difference. The difference is that in today's ideas of like plagiarism, people steal each other's ideas. Well, back then you had these common tales of the people, and they were retold by different cultures inside the Mesopotamian area, so that way it relayed their ideas, their motifs, their God. So it's interesting, but it's literally how they told theology.
So I know the idea of gods in different ancient civilizations are different in how they tell it. But so I guess what I'm asking is the idea of God itself repurposed.
That's a good idea. That's a good question. I'm actually planning a future podcast on this idea, because where does the priesthood come from?
In the Old Testament?
Yeah.
The Levites?
It's Levites. Or was it?
Babylonian?
Yeah.
Phoenician?
Yeah, there's a lot of thoughts on this, because
Canada.
See, Gumby's way ahead of me.
Yeah. Don't let me derail you on this whole thing. My mind's
Well, here's the thing that always kind of confused a lot of people, including myself. After the flood, we know that there are clean animals, right? And because it says that Noah made sure that he took what on the ark? 7 of every creature, I'm sorry, 2 of every creature and 7 of every clean creature, right?
Mm-hmm.
How did you know it was clean if there was no Levitical priesthood?
There must have been a priesthood somewhere.
Ah. So there's ideas on this because there's literally foreshadowing of priesthood inside of the Testament before there's a priesthood.
Mm.
And it does make references to priests. So who were they?
Aaron.
Well, that's just it. And that's why we're going to be doing a podcast episode on that. I've been doing a little bit of research, and I might have some good ideas. I won't say I know because I don't know, but I might have some good ideas. And
You were the head of the priesthood, weren't you?
the Aaronic priesthood.
All right. I'm sorry for derailing.
Nah, you're good. Okay. But so this is kind of like where we're going polemically, how things were repurposed by different people all across the Mesopotamian area. So Israel's writers polemically reassigned Baal's titles to Yahweh, asserting monotheistic dominance. In fact, Psalm 68:4 directly co-opts Baal's epithet, which is called the rider in the clouds for Yahweh, while Psalm 104 verse 3 describes Yahweh making the clouds his chariot. This theological warfare collapsed Canaanite polytheism into Yahweh's unified sovereignty, merging El's transcendence and Baal's eminence. Because remember, they're co-regents, right? But there's more. Because what ends up happening is you have these different motifs as it goes through. Now, there is the 2 Yahwehs in the Old Testament, and that's where it gets really interesting. So in Genesis 19:24, you have a verse. The sun had risen over the earth when Lot arrived in Zoar, and the Lord rained down sulfur upon Sodom and Gomorrah, fire from the Lord out of heaven. Every time you read this verse, it's going to sound stranger because it's the Lord raining down fire from the Lord. When you read this, it's actually one second.
God, is that you?
Sorry, forgot to unplug my Alexa. That was my son. And every time you read through this, it's very interesting because it's the sun had risen over the earth when Lot arrived in Zoar, which is one of the places. And Yahweh rained down sulfur upon Sodom and Gomorrah, fire from Yahweh out of heaven. So you literally have fire coming down from Yahweh to the city. So there's actually 2 Yahwehs in the verse. And believe it or not, that's explained again inside of one of the books of the prophets. This story is told twice, and both times, especially if you read it in the Greek and the Hebrew, both times it shows you that there's 2 Yahwehs in this verse, both working together in tandem. And this idea was actually very prevalent across the Old Testament. This happened several more times. Again, someday we'll actually do a really deep dive into this, but it would take us a good 2 hours or more because you have to dive into each verse to actually see the context of it, and it opens itself wide up. it's really cool. But our focus today is not on the two Yahwehs. We're just making insinuations to that. Our focus today is, where did the death sentence from Jesus come from? So we'll get there. But this is part of that, is how the two Yahwehs work together and how there were two Yahwehs in the Old Testament.
You're setting it up.
I am. I'm framing, like a good carpenter. I'm framing things. and that happens several times across the Old Testament. It's really cool. Ezekiel makes mention of it. And obviously, Dr. Heiser does a great presentation of this. So the two Yahwehs in the Old Testament is a binitarian theology. So Yahweh, the visible angel of Yahweh, which is mentioned inside Exodus 3:2-6, and in Judges 13:20 and 22, and the glory of God in Ezekiel's vision in 6:7 and Genesis 19:24, as we said, explicitly shows two Yahwehs acting in unity, one on earth and one in heaven. This binitarian structure, rooted in Canaanite co-regency, framed Yahweh as both sovereign and executor.
Executor or executor?
Yes. I mean, if you read those stories, the answer is yes. Thoughts? Ooh, silence fills the room.
Yeah. I mean, I remember Heiser's teaching on this a little bit.
Yeah, it's really interesting once you see
it. It was over my head then. And I'm still thinking
that. Like I said, we'll do a deep dive into the two powers because it gets really interesting. It's kind of cool. Yeah, it's really, really cool. So this takes us, believe it or not, into the book of Daniel. And this is where we start to get it, the revelation and how it starts to work together. So inside Daniel, you have, and this will be in Daniel 7, you do have the Ancient of Days. And the Ancient of Days is sitting in his court, and the court is assembled. The thrones are laid out. The seats are brought forward, and all the spirits and all the angels and all of the regions, they all take their seat. And you see this giant court assembly come together. It's really cool when you read it. It's all about this heavenly assembly, right? And the Ancient of Days, who is obviously, the author of all creation. Well, when he sits down, you see the Son of Man come through. And the Son of Man takes his seat with the Ancient of Days, and he passes the authority in the kingdom over to the Son of Man. So it's pretty cool. It's one of the major times in the Old Testament that you have this idea of the Son of Man and the Ancient of Days. Obviously, the two Yahwehs working together with two titles now that are outside of just Yahweh. And it's kind of the cool part of this, is that you have this being manifest inside of the prophecies of Daniel. I love the book of Daniel. I don't love how it's laid out because it goes back and forth so much, because you're like, oh, Daniel's doing this. Oh, here's a vision. Oh, Daniel's doing this. Oh, here's a vision. I kind of wish it was laid out a little better, but I didn't author it. But, like, man, he needed an editor.
Get some see what they think.
Right?
It'll for the next edition.
There we go. So I love the book of Daniel. I just wish it was laid out. But it's very fascinating that you have all of this rich symbolism across the book. and the more you get into the book of Daniel, the more you'll see this. And it really, one of the reasons I like the book of Daniel so much is it's not afraid to dive deeper into some of the context and theology you see earlier in the text across Genesis and Deuteronomy. For example, if you go over at, I think it was chapter 2, when you have the Watcher show up and speak with Daniel and give that whole court identity, where he's not telling you that oh, God told you to do this. He's saying this is by the rule of the Watchers.
Mm.
So you actually have the power of the court presence throughout the book of Daniel. That's really a unique idea. It's kind of cool.
It's almost, when I see the kingship being passed down, my king always wanted a son, right? To transfer authority, to keep the lineage going, to keep the authority in place, and seems almost set up like a monarchy,
Yeah. Yeah. It's rich with symbolism. It's really cool.
Game of Thrones-ish.
So, and then of course you have Jesus' trial. Now, and there's a lot that could be said there, because Jesus' trial was pulled together and they tried over and over again to find something to convict him on, right? Fun fact, by the way. Fun fact. How many people were in a Sanhedrin?
72.
Yeah. That's rich, though, with symbolism, because how many nations are inside of Genesis?
Sneaky.
Uh-huh.
Was it 72? I don't remember.
Yeah.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
Okay.
So depending on which scholar you talk to, and whether it's in Hebrew or whether it's inside of Greek, it's 70 or 72, right?
Which aligns with the Watchers.
Which also aligns with the Watchers,
Yeah.
which also aligns with the scholars of the Septuagint, which is why it's called the LXX.
There's something going on.
How fascinating is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you have the Sanhedrin, you have the Watchers, you have the nations, you have the LXX. 70 is such a prevalent number across all of the Old Testament, just fascinating. And the New Testament, obviously. So it's really cool. So again, they're trying to, and over again, they pull in witnesses. And what's really interesting is that the witnesses are not relevant.
What do you mean?
So
The witnesses against
Jesus.
Okay.
They can never convict Jesus. Why? Why can they never convict Jesus? You have witnesses coming up saying that he did all these terrible things.
Mm.
But why were none of them relevant?
But nothing could stick.
But why?
I don't know.
Well, because they were bogus charges, right?
They were bogus charges, but they could have still stuck.
We've seen lots of bogus charges stick in
Yeah.
temporary times.
Yeah, right. But they could have still stuck. But why didn't they stick?
They're in puffs and cigarette.
Do
Smoke.
do 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 do
That's a
do
good question.
do 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 do.
Use a lifeline here.
So Jesus had to fulfill the law, right? Because Jesus was the law and the prophets. What does it say in the Old Testament? If you have a testimony against somebody, you need something.
Like a second person to corroborate it?
Boom. You need two witnesses,
Yes.
and both witnesses have to be able to corroborate each other.
Oh.
And so they never could bring two witnesses up that could tell the same story. Their stories always contradicted each other. So with Jesus fulfilling the law, nobody could actually use the law against him because he is the law. And so they couldn't use his own law against him. That's the fascinating part, is that because they all had stories to convict him, but no two witnesses could ever confirm anything he did that was wrong, even by lying.
I think they could have gotten in a powwow and figured that out ahead of time.
You would have thought, right?
But I guess most crooked efforts are done by surprisingly dumb people. Like, they can be successful
For sure.
Right.
but usually, I mean, we're seeing a lot of contemporary examples of people being effective but sloppy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Duly
look
noted.
at Al Capone. You had to wait for his taxes.
Right. I mean, a man who killed who knows how many people. That's all we can get him on? Tax evasion?
Right. So here's the thing, is Jesus as the Son of Man, the eminent authority, the Ancient of Days, stood before this crowd. And over again, they tried. And his phrase, the one thing he says is, you will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven. What that does, they knew this. They knew what he said. They knew what he was telling them. He wasn't just saying that, oh, guys, by the way, I'm going to come back again. By saying that he was the Son of Man, that a phrase that's only used one time inside of the Levitical canon, because most of these were rabbis. So let's preface that too. So most of the people that were there were either going to be Sadducees or Pharisees, right? Because those were the preeminent authority of the Jewish leaders of that time, were Pharisees and Sadducees. There were a couple other groups too. There was the Zealots, and there was the Essenes, and there was, in fact, there's an argument that the Jewish leadership that was around Jesus was probably Essene, right? Because they were the mystical group. They were the ones that read the book of Enoch and the Jubilees and
Healers.
the healers, the mystics. Yeah. So there's an argument that a lot of his followers, and maybe even him and John, were Essene. And there is some relevance to a few things that Jesus said that points to that he may have been. But we know that they had the Old Testament, and we know for sure that the Pharisees had the book of Daniel. Maybe not the Sadducees, but the Pharisees did. And so they know that this phrase, the Son of Man, they know the prophecy that's tied to. And so they know that when he says, you will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds, that he's saying, I'm Yahweh. Now, what's really fascinating about this is that the full blown up idea is that this goes all the way back to the symbolism of Baal and El echoing through the culture where it becomes the two Yahwehs, where it comes the Ancient of Days and the Son of Man, and it goes all the way into the time of Jesus. You have this motif of the cloud rider that goes all the way through almost 2,000 years.
Interesting. And Jesus had to know that would stir the pot for sure.
That's the phrase
Yeah.
that led to his crucifixion. After that, because he had to utter his own sentence. And here is what nobody catches, or very few, is that he convicted himself because no man could convict him. He literally caused his own sentence on purpose.
Ain't that what Ananias ended up saying? You heard it from his own mouth. And then he, ripped his whatever and got all dramatic.
Yeah. But here's the key takeaway of this.
Rabbis.
Because Jesus, by his own admission, Jesus is the law, right? Jesus is the law. Jesus is everything that's built on the law. He himself is the embodiment of it. So no man could use it against him. So he literally had to convict himself. And that is what's so weighty. That's what's so deep about that, is that nobody could use the law against him. So he himself had to do it.
Well, I mean, no one's going to tell him, well, you brought this upon yourself. I'm not going to be that guy.
I know. I just find that so deep.
It is.
It's so insanely deep when you think about he knew now going forward what he would endure and go through his death, through all that suffering, through all the torture, through all that he knew, and he still did it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure he also knew he could have avoided using that phrase and, sure may have been persecuted and whipped and all of that, but probably released.
Yeah.
Had it not been for that admission.
Pilate tried.
But they were egging him on.
Yeah.
They wanted him to do that.
How does this relate? Because it's not the first time he says he refers to himself as the Son of Man, right? Because he refers to himself at other points in the Bible, right? In the New Testament.
But never in front of the Sanhedrin.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he revealed himself or it was revealed to Peter, right?
So actually, I don't remember all the instances. Are all of his revelations like that to a small group like the apostles?
So it's funny you say that. The answer is both yes and no. The answer is actually both yes and no. And I was actually talking to my kids about this the other day. It's fascinating. So there is a moment after the Sermon on the Mount when Jesus is talking to the apostles. And the apostles stop him and they say, Jesus, why do you reveal all of this to us, but you speak in riddles to the crowd? And again, very few people pick up on this. His answer was insanely revealing. He said, because if I spoke plainly to them, they may be convicted of their own guilt. I'm paraphrasing out of that because it takes, it's longer. But so in other words, he stops them from their own damnation. Because if they fully understood it, they actually might cause their own damnation through knowing it.
Interesting. Or his understanding of the hierarchy and the nature of how, when you set it up at the beginning, because I remember when his disciples were asking, can I sit by you on the right hand when they were in heaven? He's like, you don't even know what you're saying. You don't even understand the theology behind it, or
right.
what it is,
and
how it's set up. I always found that fascinating.
Yeah.
No, you can't. What are you talking about? Guard into gates, buddy.
Yeah. And even these ideas, this is where George will try to get his pushback in. So even these ideas are just simply what we know of God and how we know God through our own ideas and motifs and stories. Because here's the reality of it. We can never know God in what he is. We can never know God in his fullness. We can never know God in him actually. Because if we did, it would blow our mind. We can only understand him in our own context of what we ourselves can understand. And that's the weird part of it, because most of the pushback from big, loud atheists
ooh, cheap shot, George.
is most of that pushback is actually because people say, well, God's this and God's that. Well, no, that's the point. Is that no, God's not any of that.
Yeah.
That's simply in the way that we understand who God is. He's way bigger than any of those stories. Those are just the little tiny ways that we try to see who he is. So, yeah.
Is it fair to say that there, in heaven, that there's a I don't know, a corporate element to it, an executive. Hey, up there, I think in the supernatural, everything had to go through a process, right?
Yeah.
Corporate's not happy with you, buddy. So
I think it's fair to say.
it kind of seems set up that way when you go through especially the two Yahwehs. It seems, when he's sitting among the assemblies, it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, I'm sovereign, but there are other people up here who have importance.
Yeah.
Right? Whose opinions or whatever ideas I consider or I value.
Yeah.
It's very corporate.
It is. It is. And I think part of that is in how we understand structure. Because I think that the structure that we can't see is so much deeper than we can ever realize.
Well, thinking like that, then it kind of makes the sense. The Lord of Heaven,
Yeah.
Lord from heaven, came down from. I'm like, wait a minute. So is that just a title that they give to certain people? Like, Lord Balfour, Lord.
Well, think of it.
Child.
Here's how I think of it. And this is because I come from a very Eastern background with martial arts and stuff. I don't think of it in that way because that's very much a Western European monarchical idea. I think of it more from an Eastern mystic way. Are you familiar with Taoism?
Not particularly.
Okay, so Taoism goes back to primordial ideas of the essence of all life. And the void is what creates all life. And the void is what gives everything substance. And the void is what offers the energy that flows through. It's kind of like the Force, right? May the Force be with you. Yes, there's also Revenge of the Sixth. But no, but the whole idea is that all life emanates from the void, right? I kind of think God in this way, where he's not the one that rules over all things. Rather, he is the one that animates all things and gives everything structure and energy and life. He is the fountain that grants everything substance.
Yeah, I've heard of that for sure.
That's kind of how I see God. And there's parts in the Psalms, like our Proverbs rather, well, and Psalms, but Proverbs 8 and 9 kind of echo that idea, where it says that wisdom was obtained by God before there was, the mountains, before there was the earth, and through wisdom all things were made and granted. And so there's even parts of the Bible that kind of relate to this idea, where life emanates out of God as the fountain of all life. So that's actually how I see God himself, is that he's not so much the king over all things, but rather that he's the one that grants everything life.
So everybody's wrong, but everybody's right.
Yes.
So all paths lead to this creator. I'm just using the word creator. Right?
Well, I would say that there is a piece of God in many things. I think that Christianity, specifically for me, Catholicism, I think that there's pieces of God that relate back to him in all major religions. Mm-hmm. And actually Catholicism kind of agrees with that, that there is wisdom of God that echoes through all theology from all religions, pointing back at him. And the fullness of what he is related through Christianity. But it doesn't mean that everybody else is fully wrong. It means that all of them are still kind of being pointed in the right direction.
It's a scary Aaron. Can't coexist here.
I was kind of
God is bigger. My God is stronger.
I was kind of thinking about that corporate element, and like as we were talking about, like, hey, like the argument about like, oh, this is a derivative work because it has this origin elsewhere. And I think like the uncurious argument is like just like, oh, it's like I'm going to cast doubt on it because it's a derivative work, because it looks like a derivative work, because it rhymes with this thing in the past. But I feel like there's like a more like sophisticated, like naturalistic explanation to grasp at is like actually being curious about like, okay, let's go back past all of the like different derivations of it or like rhyming things with it across different cultures and ask like, okay, is there a naturalistic explanation for having this duality, this corporate structure? Because we know like there had, even if the origin is supernatural, like these different structures have been used in the organization of society to achieve certain ends. Religion has been used since time immemorial to, achieve, the ends of kings and larger societies, and has contributed to the organization of us into hierarchies. I'm thinking about this like in particular because like we see not just like okay, we got Baal and El rhyming with the Son of Man and Yahweh, and then Jesus and God, but we have like the different like the laws, like the little bit of laws, the different laws about like property and like things like that in the Old Testament rhyming with like Hammurabic laws. So we see this sharing in different areas. I don't know where I'm going, except I'm thinking about like it'd be interesting to think about how kings used these dual faces of gods in their enforcement, their creation of larger societies that were subjugated to them.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. There's those ideas, motifs. When it comes to Hammurabi and the Levitical laws, I actually see that as something that relates to how God's lays things out in the New Testament. If you go through the epistles, God always says to obey the laws of the land. Well, if you go to the Old Testament, the Levitical laws are kind of the same thing. Levitical laws actually are copacetic with the laws of Hammurabi. Again, obeying the laws of the land. In fact, if you look at them side by side, the Levitical laws are far more merciful than the laws of Hammurabi. So you actually see a more merciful law than you do with the laws of the land. Like in the New Testament, again, you have the laws of the land, and then you have the laws of the Christians that are laid out, but they're more merciful than the laws of the land. And so God's always trying to lead people into a direction that is more merciful, more loving. Yeah. It's kind of cool.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Because I actually have done that where I laid down, the different laws side by side, and because people always complain, they're always like, "Well, there's slavery in the Old Testament, and God endorsed slavery," and I was like, that was the laws of the land. And if you look at them side by side, the Levitical laws that God laid out were much more merciful than the laws of Hammurabi. So again, he's trying to lead you in that more merciful direction. And I see it as him trying to help the evolution of man, going from, the ancient Cro-Magnons into the Stone Age, into the Bronze Age, into the modern age, right? So slowly leading the evolution of humans becoming better and better through time. Yeah.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Especially at one time, I used to make minimum wage for like $5.
That's
way beyond that now.
Right? I used to work for $5 under the table.
So happy. The first time I got like $4.75. It was like my first job ever. I was so happy. Yeah, things are looking great. I can't even buy eggs with that now.
I can actually say this because it no longer exists. So I used to work under the table for $5 an hour. I was a cook. I worked 12 hours a day. I cooked breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yep.
And it was good money.
Yeah, well.
I was a teenager. I was making good money. I was saving up thousands of dollars. Like, this is awesome, right? But here's the thing. I was the cook in this deli and the deli was actually a front for numbers.
For a what?
For numbers
the numbers game.
For the numbers game.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
So the place is actually a numbers racket. The bartender next door was a cop, so nobody would ever go and try to bust him. So it was great. So me as a teenager, I got away with a lot. We'll just say that I got away with a lot.
The old numbers game in Cleveland.
But the funny thing about this, here's the fun part, is that they kind of just hired me to be the cook so that way it would distract people from what it was. But I was actually a pretty good cook, so people actually started coming in for food. And that
Even better.
that surprised the owner. When he started seeing people come in, he's like, wait a minute. They're here to actually eat. And I started changing the menu around and stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was fun. And I did everything. I washed the dishes, I cooked, I served, I did like everything. It was funny. It was hard work, but as a teenager, it was kind of fun.
That's the thing with, I mean, like, there's lots of talents out there and people who need money, and I'm like always surprised when like the like operation that is trying to like slide under the law just doesn't like, employ more good cooks. Like, why be sloppy? There's a ton of people who would cook just for the joy of cooking, and
I really loved it.
Wouldn't really interrogate too hard, because they need the money.
Yeah. I thoroughly enjoyed that too. It was because I got to talk to people all day long, and then I had my regulars coming in, and I had regulars coming in who didn't even play numbers. They were just there to get food and talk. It was fantastic. It was a job I really enjoyed. Yeah. But hey, that's really all I had for you tonight. Just I wanted to go over these ideas that meant so much to me, looking back at them. And we'll do a more in-depth two powers in heaven review of that, because there's a lot that we don't usually cover. Dr. Heiser covered a lot of it, and even more has come out since people have dived deeper into the Ugaritic tablets, and because there's a lot of them. There's like thousands and thousands of Ugaritic tablets, and it's really opened up a whole world of what ancient Mesopotamia actually was. It's pretty cool. So,
is there anything new discovered in the Dead Sea Scrolls? Someone mentioned that to me recently.
There has been a few more discoveries, but again, we'll cover that at a later time.
Oh, that's
because it's really cool, and I think a certain doctor we both know has got some research on that now. So, yeah. In fact, I'll tell you offline about some cool stuff because I have some news for you.
That's the After Dark episode.
That's right. So, Keith, any last words?
Maybe. Yeah, I guess I'm thinking about like how diving in at this level, like, even we've been talking about like, hey, where like, someone of a certain persuasion might like poo-poo this. Like at this level, there's something interesting for everyone, because regardless of what you believe, like seeing the evolution of things should be interesting, because even if it were to have a fully naturalistic explanation, it started with, some dude in a cave with an idea, and then it spread to the Phoenicians, and then it spread to whatever. Like, that is how society evolved, and that has influenced us to this day. So it's quite cool diving in at this level and seeing how the threads weave together.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. Well said, Keith. Yeah. Gumby.
My final thoughts were, I always watch The Passion every year around this time, around Easter time. And I always think, I knew it was that phrase. It really kind of set things off. I'm like, he knew who he was. What if he just didn't say that? Did that change who he was? And would that have changed the outcome of things? Did he have to answer that?
That's interesting. It's interesting you say that.
Because one could argue he didn't have to answer that because he still was the Christ, right?
Yeah.
And he fully knew that.
Yeah.
I'm just fascinated that he knew that in order for things to roll out afterwards, in order for the gospel to spread, in order, for everything to kind of come after that, he had to still say that. So,
Yeah.
I understood he knew his mission in that he had to say it, but had he didn't, it wouldn't have changed who he was. But yet things could have been way different.
Way different.
Fascinating.
Fascinating.
There's nothing taboo over brew.
That's right. And please check us out on social media. We are on Facebook. We're on X. We're on Blue Sky.
That reminds me, before I leave tonight, I need to actually get the 2FA.
All right. And please check us out on our new site, too. BibleOverBrews.com is up. Our new site is looking really cool. And it's only going to go bigger and better. We have a free membership you could jump on. And at some point in the future, we're going to start handing out quizzes and prizes.
I even eventually split into duality.
That's right. So, good fight. Good night. God bless.
Peace out.